My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey, 40-plus gay man, gay talk family. Yes, it's time for another episode of 40-plus gay man, gay talk, and it's a special episode, guys. Number 300. Y'all have been getting 30 minutes of my time for 300 episodes, and I'm very excited to have you as listeners. I'm super excited to be doing this show because when I started this one, I was like, I don't know, we'll see how far we go with it, and kind of shocked me that here we are. And because this is where we are, I wanted to find something special to talk about today. I don't know if it's that special because it's something we talk about a lot, but let's talk about finding love. And I found a guy who's a therapist and a sex therapist. And let's just say he's got some ideas about how to find love with someone and not losing your mind. And I know for most gay men, this is something like, I'm just losing my mind, trying to find a man. I can't find a man. Of course, if you'd get off the apps, maybe you would find a man. Just kidding, guys. But I'm excited to have Todd Baratz here. And there's just, and I already butchered his name, it's Baratz, but there's something interesting just about the title, Todd, of your book, because I think most people in this journey of trying to, quote, find love, they lose their minds in lots of different ways, right?
Yeah, I think part of being alive is losing our mind.
Yes, I agree. But what is the thing that you're finding most that inspired you to say, I'm going to write this book? Because there had to be something behind all of this that said, I think from my practice, the experiences, the challenges, like, let's break every rule about love and get a book out there that really addresses some of this stuff. What was the driver for you, man?
Myself. No. The book is largely about myself, my clients in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Being a therapist and working with clients going through similar, if not the same things, is a bizarre experience. And also being on Instagram and having people ask me questions about the literally exact things I'm dealing with in the moment.
By the way, I'm just going to interrupt there. I love your Instagram, your diag nonsense. I love. That's an awesome name. But so anyway, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to call that out since you brought it up.
I realized that there are just so many common themes that people are struggling with in their life, in their relationships, myself included. So I really wanted to write something that encompassed all of those themes. It was also a very therapeutic process for me in terms of what I was writing about, because what I was writing about was my relationship, specifically the ending of it, and what it meant to be single again and date. So it came from a very personal place, and it was really inspired by a lot of stories from my practice as well, as I see individuals and couples for therapy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm trying to think. I guess I was about 3 years into my coaching, maybe 2. And I knew I wanted to write the book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay, but I didn't know that's what it was going to be called. I just knew I wanted to write a book about my late in life coming out stuff. And I think most people they begin to write books, even fiction books. I think there's a piece of the fiction that's really true about whoever's writing the fiction that is about ourselves, our journeys, how we've experienced life. And I know for me, it was the same thing, very therapeutic to let's get this out and get it out in the world. So you had a relationship that came to an end. What was some of the biggest challenges of moving forward that you've now put into the book? Like the challenges and kind of here's the way I see the way to make it happen. What was some of that for you?
Challenges in moving forward after the ending?
Yeah.
Well, they were innumerable. I don't think that we are fully prepared or understand what it means to end a relationship. So much focus is on celebrating the beginning of a relationship. There are holidays about love. We have Valentine's Day, there are weddings, there are celebrations of anniversaries, but there's really no acknowledgement or celebration for the ending of a relationship. But the
Mm.
ending of a relationship is just as important as the beginning of a relationship. The beginning of a relationship is a place where there's huge transformation, life changes, you become a different version of yourself. And the same thing happens with the relational ending. It's just, it's the other side of the same coin, that is our relational life or ourself. So I was really surprised at the depth of which I felt the powerful feelings that came up, how difficult it was to basically become a new person.
Mm.
Going from a we, thinking about we are going to be doing this, we're planning this trip, we have dinner plans, what am I making us for dinner, to what do I want? That part of being in a relationship is changing from an I to a we at times, and we can totally lose ourselves.
Yeah.
So it was really shocking to see the challenges, and just the difference in that version of life, from being in a relationship to being alone. Um, and the entire spectrum of good to bad to wonderful to horrible. That some of those differences were pretty shocking and something
Well,
I wasn't prepared
challenging.
for.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared. I mean, as much as I was ready to be an out gay man after being married for 13 years, there was so much I was not prepared for. And I realized in that moment, as I went through my own journey with therapy and everything, how much I was very codependent, even though the we wasn't the we I wanted to be in. And there were those moments when I was like, I don't like being alone. I would do anything not to be alone in the house.
Mm,
I would call any number of friends, or I lived in Laguna Beach at the time. So, and I lived right across from the gay beach there. So it was pretty easy to like, okay, let's just escape down to the beach for a little bit. And even if there was only a few of us on the beach, it's like, well, at least there's other gay people, right? And then as I would walk up, and anybody who's ever been to Laguna Beach, the gay beach area, it's some pretty big steps to get back up to Pacific Coast Highway. And my little condo apartment was right across from the beach. And it was not only was it a drudgery to climb those stairs, but the drudgery was almost like worse, as I'm like, okay, but I'm going home. I'm going to an empty house,
mm.
blah, blah, blah.
It
Now,
was
when
a
I had the,
symbolic climb.
yeah, it really was. Now, when I had the kids, it was like, I don't have time to even, I've got my hands full. But I'm not sure enough people do realize after the breakup, or even after you lose a partner, that's a whole nother conversation. Like you lose a partner to death and become a widower. I don't know that anybody really prepares us for any of this. And then suddenly
No.
here we are and we're naked in this emotions. So what's one of the things you help people really walk through when like suddenly all that stuff starts to like, oh my God, here we go. How do you
What
help
I
them
found
get
most
through it?
interesting was that people operate under the assumption that they shouldn't be feeling the things they are feeling, that it shouldn't be lasting as long as it should be
Mm,
lasting, that they shouldn't have dreams about their ex, that they shouldn't fantasize about their ex, that they shouldn't fill in whatever blank. And
mhm,
then most people feel shame about it. Most people internalize it. Most people don't share it with other people, and they live alone with their grief and their pain,
mhm,
which is heartbreaking to hear. But I hear this all the time. Anytime I do any sort of Q&A on social media, the most common question is how do I get over? How long? It's been 4 months, 6 months, a year. I still have dreams. What do I do? That there is this sense of this reactionary shame that people experience in the face of their own heartbreak. That's heartbreaking in and of itself. And that only exacerbates that painful heartbreak or challenge or whatever emotion. Um, and so that's usually the first step, is really acknowledging and accepting um, the wild journey that happens after the end of a relationship without evaluating the duration or intensity or diagnosing some quote unquote pathology that's arising out of some of those feelings. So the first step, is really accepting that all of those feelings and experiences, they're okay to feel and they're actually normal. That the grief is, a way of dealing with what's lost. And that's a meaningful experience that people often want to shove away, escape, and avoid and numb out.
I always, okay, I don't laugh at them to their face on a Zoom call, but I always laugh a little bit when somebody says, well, it's been 4 months. It's been 6 months. I almost want to go, okay, well, here's your little like ball. Throw it at any of the holes here on the wall. And let's just, whichever one you go through, that's when it's all going to disappear, because there is no magic thing that happens. I mean, so I came out in 1999. I know I'm really old, folks. So, but that's why it's called 40 plus gay men, gay talk. And so it's almost 25 years ago that I came out. And there are still moments that the guy that I had my first relationship with, even like today, I mean, he popped in after you said something just a few seconds ago. It's so interesting that he still pops into my mind, not in a bad way at this point. Like, oh yeah, that kind of reminded me of that, right? I don't know that good or bad, a relationship ever really goes away, because there's going to be something that pops in. I think the difference is when you realize, here's why it popped in and here's the purpose it's serving for me right now. And I think that's a big question, at least I challenge my clients with, is like, answer the question, what can I do with this, and how is this now showing up to serve me, rather than, oh my God, here I go, I'm going to spiral. Find
100%.
the ways to let it serve you, versus, oh my gosh, I'm such a fucked up piece of shit. You're not a fucked up piece of shit. We're all fucked up pieces of shit in our own way, but I think anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we need to really be asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of these questions of how long, or why should I, or why does it hurt so much? There's so much anxiety and so much meaning implied in some of these questions. And I usually try to shift towards that meaning, as opposed to the evaluative whatever. And the meaning is usually some fear of being alone, some fear of pain, and what that means.
Right. Well, and I think the pain too. Okay, so we've been talking about being alone, breakups and everything, but then the pain too starts on the front end too. There's so much quote pain of, I can't find somebody, there's something wrong with me. So then suddenly you start to diminish yourself, which is putting pain into your own world. But then when you have those limiting beliefs, I can never find love and everything. And again, I love working with my clients who come in, okay, I've tried everything and I can't find someone to date or be in a relationship with. Again, I in my own head, roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, you've tried everything. You probably think you have, but there's always more to try. The thing that is if you give up trying, then where does that get you? You don't get anywhere then. So what do? I'm sure you've had those clients like, I've done everything and I can't find love. What's one of the things that you walk them into to start dismantling that limiting belief?
Well, it's tough because I think most of us grow up with the value, moral, idea, desire, wish, longing that for a life with someone else, whether that's forever or just a short period of time. And we organize our goals, our life meaning around partnership and companionship. And that's not to say that we shouldn't, but it's to say that the desperation that people often approach dating and seeking relationships is coming from this place of, my life's meaning is only and can only be defined by finding a partner.
Yep.
And so, I go through well, what have you tried, the logisticalizing of it all? And most of the times, they haven't tried everything. But beyond that, I also like to examine the belief around centering our lives around someone else, around that search, around that I'll never be happy if I don't. And that's not to say that people should be happy if they don't, but we're not living our lives at the end of we're in the present moment, so we actually don't know. The how do I've tried everything is anxiety about being alone. It's anxiety about being alone in a life structured around being within other and space other, and not with ourselves. So I try to really shift that goal, and of less being about, I must find someone, I must find someone, I must find someone to feel complete, and more about a broader general sense of journeying in this life as a person. And that struggling to find companionship is a part of that journey.
I love that, journeying in this life as a person. That's like, that would be one. If I was Oprah, I'd probably go, oh, that's a tweetable moment, but I'm not Oprah. I can pretend to be
Be
Oprah, but I'm
Oprah.
not. Yeah, be
Role
Oprah.
play Oprah.
It's interesting because when you, at least as I've done something kind of similar, as I challenge someone to like go be really present with themselves so they can be with someone else, that almost evokes a whole nother level of fear. And so I find myself having to kind of like,
That's
okay,
terrifying.
it is terrifying because it's like, oh my gosh, I have to be with myself. But it's so interesting, especially post pandemic. I'm seeing a huge, well, I call it the new gay male epidemic in some ways. This loneliness, this isolation that's happening. I know it's not just in the gay community, but because I work mostly with gay men, I see it a lot. But I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who's a dating coach in the heterosexual world, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, Rick, it's as rampant there too. This loneliness, this isolation, like we just can't find connection again." And it's almost like we've forgotten how to do so many things. Now, granted, a lot of socializing things did go by the wayside. I know in our community, the gay community, a lot of the bars and stuff closed. A lot of the social activities, they're starting to happen again. But when people can't find those outlets, and I always try to encourage people who are looking for love, like, have you really thought of all the outlets? Just because you tried this, have you tried a yoga class? Have you tried hiking groups? Have you tried, a reading group? Have you tried just showing up with some of your heterosexual friends, which is always an interesting. Show up with some heterosexual friends at some of their functions. I'll always go, oh, I'm so and so. You should meet them. Oh, do you know this guy? Because he's gay too. I'm like, no, we don't. There isn't like the gay. Well, there is kind of the gay network, but we don't all know each other. What is something you do to encourage people to like, okay, we know the isolation, all this, but like to open those doorways to possibilities? How do you help them start to swim through that?
I've been taking a much more of a philosophical approach to everything lately, just because the idea of loneliness, yeah, everyone is more lonely than they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
then we have to ask the question is, well, what should we not be lonely? Is there a version of life where we don't feel loneliness? And the
Mm-hmm.
real answer is no. There's not, whether you're in a relationship or you're single forever, loneliness is a defining feature of being a person.
Right.
People can understand our emotions, but no one can ever feel what we're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And in that space is lonely. Um, and we're essentially, to one extent or another, alone in this life. That's not to say that people shouldn't be looking for companionship, friends, community. We do need friends, community, and companionship. But just in terms of this inability to tolerate emotions, I think is really the underlying problem here, is that people are searching for a partner to help them tolerate themselves. Um, and so, of course, again, I go into the have you tried these things, and I push and challenge and etc. But the underlying meaning there is, I need to find something to fix the discomfort I feel in my emotion. Um, but the reality is that, anyone that's ever been in a relationship or anyone that's ever been single, both versions of life are extremely difficult. And that's
Yep.
not because of any other reason, but life is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a real big reckoning that people have to come face to face with that they don't want to. Um, that, the hope is that we'll get into a relationship and that will fix everything. But it brings up a whole host of new problems.
Yeah.
So that's why, again, this returning to facing ourselves is really an important part of dating, because it is going to bring up all of these questions and all of this desperation and longing and exasperation. Um, and most people are then focusing on, I did this app, this app, this app, this app, this, and still I can't find it. And, the focus becomes obsessive about this to the point where people develop these defeating all or nothing beliefs. I'm always going to be alone. It's my fault, all of these ways of trying to understand something that just makes it worse. So there has to be a shift in
Well,
how we're understanding.
there's a shaming of emotion. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, what you just said is really powerful. Like, just embracing that loneliness is going to be part of it. That, sometimes you're going to not feel like excited about the relationship in. emotions are a freaking part of life, guys. And the more we embrace that, okay, let's experience that emotion. I think a lot of what's going on, not to go get political on us right now, but the election is just a few days away. So much of this is coming from people not realizing if we just expressed emotion, which there's a lot of emotions going on, I realize that, but expressed emotions as we were socialized and made it healthy to express emotions and to do this, so much of the world would be a different place, because then it's okay to have this emotion. One of my clients recently said, well, I don't feel like I can express emotions with my husband. And of course, that took us down the rabbit hole. That's a big problem, right? And as he unpacked it, we're still working through some of that. It was interesting to hear him realize I didn't create this. I was socialized into this way of being with my emotions. Now that's when 100%. I get to the point like, okay, as a coach, I think, and I've got him working with a therapist now. I'm like, because there's pieces like, I'm not going to go do this deep diagnosis with you. I can help you kind of see something. But as soon as I realized he was stepping into, oh, this is family trauma and all that, I'm like, okay, great. Let's go do something different here. And let me keep on a trajectory of like, okay, well, what, kind of steps can we do to be positive? I find it interesting when people succumb to those spaces where they believe they can't be something in their relationship. Could be because of the relationship and the issue between the two of them. But also I invite them to think about who modeled that for you, that you can't be that, because that's probably a deeper space to go into. So I'm curious, what's some of the funniest things that you feel like is, the book, there's some humor in your book about certain things. What are some of the funniest things that you think people miss about finding love and losing their mind? What's some of the humor in this?
Well, I mean, it's all funny if you think about it. The
True.
extremes that we go to, that our partner could decline sex after we've just had sex 3 nights in a row and we could feel so wounded and rejected. That the degree to which we feel sometimes is outrageous. That How to Not Lose Your Mind, or when I can't even remember the title of my book. I love someone without losing your mind.
It's How to Love Someone Without Losing Your Mind. Yes.
Thank you for reminding me. It's a bit of a bait and switch because we are going to lose our fucking minds. And that, we have to find the humor in that, about how intensely we can feel about something, about how we can be so reactive about literally nothing sometimes, about how much our past informs the present, about how much we can expect from one person or from one relationship. These things are just outrageous and we have to laugh at them all because they're ridiculous. Someone's not going to fulfill our lives. It just can't happen.
Just looking for the perfect partner. As soon as well, I just want somebody that's perfect for me. I'm like, I just can't help but kind of laugh. It's like,
outrageous.
Okay, it is outrageous. Just the word perfect. I mean, come on, people. I mean,
ideal. Now, what's your ideal partner?
What's your ideal? What's somebody that would,
it's like,
what's someone that would, I love when a client,
fictional character.
Right.
Basically. What's the most fictionalized version of another human being can you create?
Right. I always like, and not like, oh, I want a partner who will make me happy. I always turn that around and say, well, let's work with that just for a quick minute here. What if you were looking for a partner that contributes to your happiness? Oh. And that always gets a big pause. I'm like, because if you need somebody to make you happy, you're going to keep failing. It might feel like they make you happy. Yes, but I see it more. They contribute to your happiness. And even that's kind of like putting a heavy duty thing on a partner.
It's become a rescue mission where we're looking for someone else to rescue us, to save us, to make us happy, to make us whole, to make us complete, to be our other half, to do something for us, to make our lives better. That's not to say that our partners shouldn't make our lives better in one way or another, but better needs to be redefined. Better or happy isn't about making us happy. It can't be, because it's just not a possibility, especially if you're talking about a longer term relationship. If you want to talk about a couple of months, maybe they can make you happy, but then you really get to know them and they're going to make you miserable. So we really have to change the way in which we're thinking about
True that.
Our relationship and dating goals. Is it's not happiness. Happiness can't be the fucking goal. The goal has to be personal growth. We have to be in relationships that help us grow. We want to be with someone that helps us grow. We want to be with someone not that makes our problems worse, but somebody that can help us and challenge us challenge us to grow, and vice versa, in positive directions.
I've been with my husband now 23 years and love him to death. He's great. And we both will admit this, even at 23 years, is still work to make the relationship continue to be what it's meant to be.
Of course.
But it's not work in the way that, like, when I say that, some people are like, oh God, I couldn't work that hard. I'm like, did I say work hard? I just said it's work. You have to be willing to go and put the work in. You have to be. So I love your example. We've had sex 3 nights in a row and now you want it again and he doesn't. You have to learn how to work around that sort of stuff. It has nothing to do with you. He just doesn't feel like having sex that night. It's like, and don't take
It might
that as
have
a
something to
personal
do with
offense.
you.
Well, it could, but
It does,
I always
but
look at it
you know,
like,
can you tolerate that?
yeah, can you work through that? You know, and sometimes these crazy spot, you know, the losing the mind part of your book is if people just realize we most of the time lose our mind because we create the losing the mind scenario. It's all the story we're creating a lot of the times. Yes, there are pieces that contribute to that. I'm not going to say, like, if you're in an abusive relationship, then you're probably not losing your mind. But there's other pieces, like as soon as you make assumptions about something, you need to go really first examine, okay, is that me creating that story, or is there validity to it? And this is where we get to go explore and work on the relationship. And so many
Yes.
times people don't go to that second step. It's like, oh my gosh,
we
this
are
is where
our
it is.
biggest problems.
Yeah. I say that to myself every morning when I get on to record podcasts. I'm like, okay, Rick, you're your biggest problem. So shape up and do it. So what did you enjoy most about getting this book pulled together? Other than just getting it done and getting it out there.
I mean, I really enjoyed the process of writing. It was a little isolating, you know, because I'd spend hours, you know, writing about something and then I'd have to go talk to somebody about just normal stuff and I'd be like in my head. But
Right.
I really did enjoy the quiet of my writing time. That was really nice.
I enjoyed, I loved to write. Well, at the time I wrote my book, this new book I've kind of been working on over the last couple of years. But when I was writing the first one, I was writing for Huffington Post Gay Voices and Out Magazine. And so writing was just part of my DNA at that time. I still love to write that sort of stuff. I just don't do it enough. But then when I flipped the switch on the book, I'm like, okay, there was a moment that it felt like, okay, I have to do this. And as soon as I started feeling like I have to do this, I'm like, okay, I need to stop. I need to stop and find moments where I'm enjoying doing it.
Yeah.
Even though it's work.
Yeah, you can't write if you feel like you have to do it.
No. And then when the editing process started, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole nother ball game. But it was a great thing to learn too, because I realized, like, even now I'm going back through my current book, I'm trying to get a publisher, and I'm going back through and doing some editing. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I was thinking when I wrote this. And that's a good insight too. Like, what is it you're really trying to say here? You know, and I've already started redlining whole little bits. Mine is like, I don't know, it's like 80 some quote little essays. And there's some I'm like, well, wait, you just said that here and you said that here. So bye-bye. Those got to go bye-bye for sure. But yeah, I agree with you. There was some joy in like just being in the process. There were days I ended, I'm like, I needed that. I needed that for me, so I could see myself in a different light more than anything.
Yeah, it can be really powerful. A lot of self-discovery.
So do you feel like is there another book in you going to come out down the road, do you think?
Yeah. I'm currently working on some ideas.
Nice.
I hope that I can turn into work.
Nice. Very cool. So if you were going to leave the audience with like your best Todd wisdom or diag nonsense, what would be something you would say to them about, hey, here's one of the easiest ways to not lose your mind? I hate saying stuff like that because there isn't the easiest way, but like something that, you know,
Well,
if I was going to say each time, this is something I always would give to people, what is it?
be self-aware. Develop self-awareness. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, it's hard, but the reality is that the steps that we need to take to get to where we want are known. that being step one, know yourself really fucking well.
Mm-hmm.
Know your traumas, know your attachment shit, know your early experiences, know how your identity contributes to your security or insecurities in relationships. I mean, know everything you can about yourself,
Mm.
especially as queer people. I talk to so many queer people that don't self-reflect, that have, not had therapy or coaching or meditation or whatever. And, growing up in a world where you're told you're bad simply because of your identity or who you are, um, that there's no way you can't have a wound from that. And if you don't know your wounds, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So you've got to become self-aware. You have to
That's
know
a
yourself.
biggie. You do have to know yourself. I remember a few years ago, I was really struggling to be, how do I want to say, well, just be happy in myself, number one, and happy in the relationship. And I started realizing that as I was looking at what I thought would be, if I was going to leave the relationship, the kind of guys that I would be attracted to and everything, I realized I still had daddy issues I had to resolve. And that scared the crap out of me. I'm like, really? I mean, dad and I don't get along. We've had this tug of war about me being gay, and things are great now, and things are a whole different place.
Good.
But I thought, wow, these guys that I'm seeing myself potentially with that aren't my husband, there was always a piece of them that reflected my dad. Some of it was they're assholes. Let's unpack that one. And then some of them were like a reflection of what I wish my dad had been. And some of it was physical attractions. Not that I am attracted to my dad, but there's masculinity pieces. Let's just say that got reflected there.
Well, there's
And to
all
be
of
honest,
it all the
Todd,
time.
it's always there. And it was interesting for me to finally go, okay, whew. And when I spent the time, I spent like a good solid week when that first hit me. And I'm like, okay, let's kind of like work through this in journaling and everything. I did a show around it. Not really, it wasn't me. I have a client that, of
Cool.
course, now everybody, and it's very interesting when those moments show up for us. And I think the self-awareness piece is beautiful. And I'm glad that you brought that as we're getting ready to
You
wrap up
gotta know
here.
yourself.
You got to know yourself, guys. There ain't any other way around it. And you won't regret it. Honestly, I
No.
don't think you will regret one bit of the more you know yourself, the better you can be in a relationship. In fact, there was a young guy I know who, I don't know, it's probably been 3 months ago, said to me, well, I'm just really trying to be my best me for my boyfriend. Okay, yay. But I also wanted to say, well, what if you were the best you for you?
Yeah.
And when I said that, he got really, really quiet. And I said, I'm not going to coach you because you're a friend, but just let's leave it there. And it was pretty profound to see what he's done since that. Not with me because I didn't coach him or anything, but to see what he's been able to do. So, okay, guys. So everybody needs to march out there right now. Todd needs to make some money on this book. So go buy the book. It's called How to Love Someone Without Losing Your Mind. It's out there and available. You can't miss it. It's bright purple cover. It's amazing.
Yes.
And I'm so glad we got to have this conversation. And
Same.
when I feel like somebody's doing something I'm really aligned with, I always encourage people not only to go buy the book, but the first guy who sends me their email and says, hey, Rick, I'd love a copy of the book. So you got to send me an email to rick@rickclemons.com. I will buy you a copy of the book and get it shipped to you. Only one. And if you've already got a book this year, you don't get a second. Okay, guys, let's go through that too. But so Todd, thank you again, man. Wishing you all luck with everything. Thank you for being part of our world and carving out some time. And guys,
for including me.
if you're losing your mind about love, this is the book. This is the book to go check out. I mean, there's hundreds of other books out there, but this one's got some twists in it that I think are pretty amazing. So, and thanks again, Todd, for being here. And thanks, guys, for being listeners. And in another week. And thanks for helping me celebrate. Wait, let's not forget that. Celebrate 300 freaking episodes of this podcast. Kind of crazy.
It's a really big deal. I hope you are celebrating that.
I am. I'll probably go drink a bottle of wine or something, which wouldn't be any different than any other day in my life. But it's all good. All right, gang. Thanks everybody for being listeners. Thanks, Todd. And catch us next week with another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus. Gay men, gay talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus, Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.